Amazing grace, how sweet that sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Welcome to the Yahweh and Yahshua Speak television show. We are in our last installment of Hebrew History Month, and the title of the lesson is We're Back. Oh, Black Jesus, the stranger is very high above Yisrael. So who are we? We're Yahweh's 12 spiritual tribe nation of Yisrael. Where have we been? Involuntarily scattered to the four corners of the earth and blinded to our identity as the 12 natural tribes of Yisrael. Let's go to Ezekiel, the 20th chapter. So Yahweh is showing us that it is the responsibility of Yahweh's 12 spiritual tribe nation to reveal that the 12 natural tribes and strangers are to be becoming his spiritual nation. It's all about becoming spiritual.
That's it.
Ezekiel 20, and we're going to be moving kind of fast because we want to cover a lot of things, and we want to be sure that we get to these rainbow tribes that the devil has people made up, because the 12 natural tribes as a whole don't know who they are. That's why Yahweh woke us up so we can tell them.
Yes.
Ezekiel 20, let's read verse 32, please.
Hallelujah.
Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 32. And that which cometh into your mind shall not be at all, that ye say, we will be as the heathen, as the families of the countries, to serve wood and stone.
So that's why Yahweh woke us up. That's why he's transitioning us into a spiritual nation. It says, that which cometh into your mind.
Okay.
Every man's mind has his own way about what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to serve Yahweh.
Right.
Yahweh tells us how we're supposed to serve him. He said, that which cometh into your own mind shall not be at all.
Yes.
You say, we will be as the heathen and as the families of the countries to serve wood and stone. He said, no, you're not going to do that. And in the end, he's letting you know that's why he dictated the Bible, so that you can understand that we will all be held accountable for who we serve. Serving wood and stone is unacceptable. Go to Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter. So the devil has so many perversions circulating that only Yahweh can clarify his truth.
Yes.
What is actual truth? Deuteronomy 32. We're going to read one verse. Verse 5. Deuteronomy 32. Like I said, we're going to move a little swift now. And verse 5.
Deuteronomy 32. Sorry.
Yes.
Deuteronomy 32 and 5. They have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. They are a perverse and crooked generation.
Now he's talking about the 12 natural tribes of Israel because they refused to become his 12 spiritual tribe nation. He said they've corrupted themselves. Well, they were supposed to be standing up in front of the world and letting them know and telling them about Yahweh, keeping Yahweh's laws, statutes, and commandments so the world could see and find out about Yahweh. But he said they corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his band, his children. They are a perverse and crooked generation. Therefore, the whole world is perverse and crooked because they're looking at them. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, they got their pants sagging, they bald in their heads, they're doing everything that natural Yisrael does because subconsciously they know that they're supposed to be the head. Even though they're the tail, they're still following them and they're being perverse and crooked. Let's go to Romans the 11th chapter. So in the last days, we, the 12 natural and 12 spiritual tribes of Israel are awake.
Right.
And Yahshua is about to make his second coming.
Yeah.
So things are wrapping up. They're coming to a close. And people are being divided to the right hand or to the left.
Thus says Yahweh.
All right, Romans 11. And let's start at verse 25, please.
Hallelujah.
Romans chapter 11, verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles become heir.
All right, so this is the last days. In other words, this is Japheth's rule.
Yep.
This is the time when the Japhethites or Caucasians, all right, are ruling.
Yep.
And Yahweh's going to show us the other two black sons of Noah, Ham and Shem, already rule the earth.
Yep.
Japheth's people were the last ones to rule. So the devil knows his days are numbered.
Yes.
All right, before he gets thrown into the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. Let's go to Revelation, the 20th chapter. He knows his time is winding down, so he's running as fast as he can, trying to deceive, trying to pervert as much as he can. That's why Yahweh is going faster than him.
Yes. Hallelujah.
People like to say the devil's busy, Yahweh is busier.
Yes,
he is. Revelation 20, let's start at verse 1, please.
Praise Yahweh.
Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand.
Verse 2.
Verse 2. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years.
Yeah.
All right, so that is imminent, and you won't be able to do anything for 1,000 years. 1 Corinthians 14.
Praise the mighty
Yahweh heard our prayer. It has been answered. Let's focus now. Because the devil knows he has a short time. He's using Japheth's rule to cause confusion about who Yahweh's 12 natural tribes are. 1 Corinthians 14. That's why we don't ever want to stand up and say we're confused. Because if you stand up and say you're confused, then you're saying the devil is your father. 1 Corinthians 14 and 33.
Praise the mighty God.
1 Corinthians 14 and 33. For Elohim is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints.
All right, so Yahweh is not the author of confusion. We should never say we're confused. Otherwise, you're saying the devil is your daddy. But of shalom, as in all temples of the Kadashim. So the devil's confusion has sodomites saying Yahweh's bow in the clouds represents their perversion, their same-sex perversion. He has strangers imitating Yahweh's 12 spiritual tribe nation, saying Yahweh has rainbow tribes. He says they got a rainbow Esau. He said they got a rainbow 12 natural tribes of Israel mixed multitude. He says they got a rainbow European. So let's look at the rainbow Esau. All right, and I have some articles here and about rainbow Esau. And this is from Encyclopedia Britannica. And they say the lost tribes of Israel. They say that in 930 BC, now this is an encyclopedia, that the Japhethites, because they're in rule, wrote. All right, this is their version. In 930 BC, the 10 tribes formed the independent kingdom of Israel in the north, and the 2 other tribes, Judah and Benjamin, set up the kingdom of Judah in the south. Following the conquest of the northern kingdom by the Assyrians in 721 BC, the 10 tribes were gradually assimilated by other peoples and thus disappeared from history. Hear that, Life?
I know, right?
Now, Jewish Virtual Library records all of the traditions which see the 12 tribes as one nation as early as the enslavement in Egypt or the wanderings in the deserts are regarded as having no basis in fact. This is a lie from the devil. So you see, we're looking at rainbow Esau, right? All right. It says, all right, in the book Living Jewish, The Lore and Law of the Practicing Jew, by Michael Ashery, chapter 1. What is a Jew? Kohen, Levi, and Israel. He writes, anyone born of a Jewish mother is Jewish by birth. That's the opposite of what Yahweh said in the Bible.
Yeah.
In the case of a mixed marriage, if the mother is Jewish and the father is not, the children are born Jews. If on the other hand the father alone is a Jew, the children of such a marriage are not Jewish, and if they wish to be Jewish, must undergo a religious conversion the same as any other Gentile. The reasons given for this unalterable law are many. One is that children derive their Jewishness from their mother because they are under her influence in their earliest formative years. This may be a supporting reason, but is not the legal reason. Then they say the legal reason is found in the Torah. They go to Deuteronomy the 7th chapter, but they have misquoted and misappropriated that verse. All right, David Bale writes in Eros and the Jews from Biblical Israel to Contemporary America, says Jewish communal councils throughout the Middle Ages enacted harsh legislation such as the following from 16th century Lithuania. Anyone who deliberately and brazenly violates the customs of Israel by marrying, now this is Rainbow Esau, without a quorum of 10 and a marriage canopy shall together with the witnesses who assisted him in this foul deed be excommunicated and ostracized in this world and in the world to come. Their sin shall not be forgiven, and the court shall punish them severely by hanging them from a post and administering 40 lashes without any possibility of substituting a fine. They shall be punished and tortured with all manner of suffering and excommunications as a means of preventing the promiscuity of this generation. All right, JewishEncyclopedia.com says Rainbow Esau consists of Philashas. Says the Jews of Abyssinia. The origin of the Philashas is unknown. According to a tradition preserved by them and recorded by Bruce, who traversed Abyssinia in the 18th century, they left Jerusalem in the retinue of Menelik, the son of Solomon and the queen of Sheba.
Oh boy.
So let's look at this real quick. The son of Solomon and the queen of Sheba. So now you can go to 1 Kings, the 10th chapter in the Bible, verses 1 to 13. And let's go to 1 Kings, the 10th chapter, and we'll read verse 1.
Hallelujah.
To 3, and then we're going to skip. But so, because the Japhethites are ruling, and this is Rainbow Esau, who has mixed himself up with the Japhethites, we understand that Esau started out with Shem and Ham, but then when they went up into Europe and different things, they mixed more into the Gentiles. But so, because the Japhethites are ruling, and they want to discredit and disavow that the two blacks of sons of Noah ever ruled the earth.
Right.
They, because now it's well known that King Solomon, Shelomah, who was a Shemite, one of our forefathers was black, and it's well known that this Queen of Sheba, she was black.
Right, right.
So now they want to make her be a whore type person.
Right.
Visiting noblemen and dignitaries, she goes to visit King Shelomah, and now all of a sudden they're going to have sexual intercourse, like they're some common people, and then she's going to get pregnant. They have this thing with the Philashas speculating that this is where they came from.
Okay.
So why? Because this is the black king and queen, are they, when they go to visit each other, just going to be some common street people? All right. www.ancient-origins.net. The legendary Queen of Sheba and her iconic visit with King Solomon. Originating in the Bible, the Queen of Sheba is a figure featured in the stories of many cultures and religious groups. Most tales revolve around her meeting with the biblical king of Israel, Solomon, with variations on what occurred in that visit. All right, so let's start at 1 Kings, the 10th chapter, please, verse 1.
Hallelujah.
1 Kings chapter 10 verse 1. And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Shelomah concerning the name of Yahweh, she came to prove him with hard questions.
Verse 2.
Verse 2. And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels and that bear spices, and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was come to Shelomah, she communed with him of all that was in her heart.
Verse 3.
Verse 3. And Shelomah told her all her questions. There was not anything hid from the king which he told her not.
All right, so they're having a conversation.
Right,
She
right.
asked him some questions, and he responded. Skip down to verse 13.
Verse 13. And King Shelomah gave unto the Queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, besides that which Shelomah gave her of his royal bounty. So she turned and went to her own country, she and her servants.
Says nothing about them having any type
Right.
of intimate relationship
Right,
sexually. Says King Shelomah gave the Queen of Sheba all her desire whatsoever she asked. She's a queen of a country. She's not going to be going to ask him to have relations with her. Again, this is only circulating because it's part of the Japhethites
Right,
trying to discredit
Right, right.
Ham and Shem's people from having ruled anything or done anything.
Right, right.
All right, so you can also look at 2 Chronicles,
Praise
the 9th
tonight
chapter,
now.
verses 1 to 12. All right, so they also say that the Philashas, others believe the Philashas to be descendants of prisoners of Shalmaneser,
yeah.
or of Jews driven from Judea when Jerusalem was destroyed in the time of Titus and Vespasian. It says the Jewish element of the Philashas proceeds especially from the Himerites captured in Ethiopia by the king Caleb. All right, so they're just guessing about these people. So Rainbow Esau has a map, the lost tribes of Israel around the world. All right, and so he's got the tribes, and it says, this is from www.jewishvoice.org. It says, Lost Tribes of Israel served by JVMI, Jewish Voice Ministry, Incorporated.
Yeah.
The Beta Abraham in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. In the northern part of Ethiopia's capital city of Addis Ababa, the Ketchine area is home to the Beta Abraham Jewish community. Many of their ancestors outwardly converted to Christianity under religious persecution, and some Beta Abraham today continue to practice their Jewish traditions in secret. Then they have the Beta Israel, Gandor and Takgayet, Ethiopia. In 1975, the Israeli government recognized the Beta Israel of northern Ethiopia. See, they got their Rainbow Esau, right? They're saying these are who the tribes are. Operation Solomon transported 14,500 of these Ethiopian Jews to Israel in 36 hours of non-stop flights. All right, they got the Gafat, Woliso, and Hosanna, Ethiopia. The Gafat Jewish people in southern Ethiopia strongly identify with Israel and observe biblical commandments given to God's chosen people, including circumcising male babies on the 8th day, applying the blood of a sacrificial lamb to their doorposts at Passover, and celebrating the Leviticus 23 feasts. The Limba in southern Africa. The Limba live in southern African nations, including Zimbabwe, South Africa, and other countries. They follow biblical dietary laws, have their own kosher butchers, private circumcision, observe the Sabbath, and do not intermarry. The B'nai Manash, Manipur, and Mizoram, India. The B'nai Manash are descendants of the tribe of Manasseh, residing in 2 states in northeastern India. Oral tribal histories say they were taken captive by Assyria when Israel was conquered. Some believe they traveled the ancient Silk Route east to Central Asia, settled in China, and eventually migrated south to India. Where we at?
Man.
We're not included in Rainbow Israel. I mean Rainbow Esau.
Right.
Okay? All right, so that's Rainbow Esau, and all of us know about Esau and Yaakov, or Esau and Jacob, so we're not even going to go there with them claiming to be us.
Right,
all right? If they want to define who we are, all right? So Rainbow Esau, and now Rainbow 12 natural tribes of Israel, mixed multitude.
Okay.
All right? The 12 tribe, mixed multitude. They say that Reuben are the Seminole Indians and Aboriginal Australians. They say Simeon are the Dominicans. Levi are the Haitians. Judah are the African Americans or Negroes. Zebulon are the Guatemalans and the Panamanians. Issachar are the Mexicans. Gad are the North American Indians. Asher are the Colombians, Brazilians, Argentines, and Venezuelans. Naphtali are the Hawaiians, Samoans, Tongans, and Fijians. Ephraim are the Puerto Ricans. Manasseh are the Cubans. Benjamin are the Jamaicans, the Trinidadians, and Guyanese. And so somebody has something a little bit different on this other tribe. Asher, they say it's Colombia to Uruguay. But either way, this is the Rainbow 12 natural tribes of Israel, mixed multitude. So let's look at these people.
Yeah.
Native American Indian Israel. Native Americans as Israel. A theory is born. Says Native Americans and Jews, the Lost Tribes episode. A theory is born. One of the first books to suggest the Native American Lost Tribe theory was written by a Jew, the Dutch rabbi, who you talking about? Esau. Scholar and diplomat, Manasseh ben Israel. In The Hope of Israel, 1650, Ben Israel suggested that the discovery of the Native Americans, a surviving remnant of the Assyrian exile, was a sign heralding the Messianic era. So he's in 1650 talking about Yahshua coming back. Just 1 year later, Thomas Thorogood published his bestseller, Jews in America, or Probabilities that Those Indians Are Judaical, made more probable by some additionals to the former conjectures. The lost tribe idea found favor among early American notables, including Cotton Mather, who was an English minister, Elias Boudinot, a New Jersey lawyer, who was one of the leaders of the American Revolution, talking about Japhethites and Esau, and the Quaker leader William Penn. The notion was revived after James Adair, a 40-year veteran Indian trader and chronicler of the Israelite Iysh features of Native American religion and social custom, wrote The History of the American Indians, containing an account of their origin, language, manners, religion, and civil customs in 1775. Even Epaphras Jones, an American Bible professor, engaged the theory in 1831, claiming that anyone, quote, conversant with the European Jews and the Aborigines of America will receive a great likeness in color, features, hair, aptness to cunning, dispositions for roving, unquote. Well, yeah, they are part of the Hamites. So they are like, well, so what does that have to do with Shemites? What does that have to do with Israel? Nothing. All right, the lost tribe should be seen as part of a general 19th century fascination with biblical history. says a close identification among 17th and 18th century Americans with the chosen people of Scripture helped Christian settlers see their colonization of New England as a reenactment of Israel's journey into the Promised Land. It also contributed to a more general religious myth-making scheme that helped define the national identity of the United States. To cite just one example, he talks about a 1799 Thanksgiving Day sermon that this minister said. It said, "It has often been remarked that the people of the United States come nearer to a parallel with ancient Israel than any other nation upon the globe. Hence, our American Israel is a term frequently used, and common consent allows it apt and proper." It says, "A curious incident that drew considerable attention and proved, at least to some, that Native Americans had ancient Israelite origins unfolded when Tiphilim or phylacteries were discovered in Pittsfield, Massachusetts in the early 19th century. Their discoverer wrote that this forms another link in the evidence by which our Indians are identified with the ancient Jews who were scattered upon the face of the globe, and to this day remain a living monument to verify and establish the eternal truths of Scripture." Well, Yahweh talks about the Pharisees, how they make broad their phylacteries. Well, Rainbow Esau is descended directly from the Pharisees. They make broad their phylacteries. You can see them with those long white things hanging from them. The fact that it was an Edomite that started this, then they could have given it to the Indians themselves. All right, but let's look at this Indian thing closer. Black slaves, Indian masters. Slavery, Emancipation, and Citizenship in the Native American South by Barbara Krauthammer, 2013. This was written by Nakia Parker. She said, "The sad reality is some Native Americans, in particular the Creek, Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole, or the 5 tribes, also participated in chattel and race-based slavery." So now it's talking about, really, you're just talking about the Hamites enslaving our people. But Indians had slaves. So they supposed to be Israel, but they had slaves. It says, Barbara Krauthammer, a professor of Native American and African American history at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, adds an exhaustive and compelling contribution to the research in this area. The first full-length monograph chronicling chattel slavery in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations. She says she persuasively argues that the decision to engage in chattel slaveholding resulted from a conscious and deliberate choice on the part of Indian slaveholders to embrace racial ideology that, quote, degraded blackness and associated it exclusively with enslavement, unquote. For some influential and wealthy members of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, adopting race-based slavery provided the most efficient way to maintain an increasingly tenuous hold on political and cultural autonomy in the face of aggressive American expansion while pursuing self-interested economics and diplomatic goals. Even emancipation and the end of the Civil War did not bring immediate relief to the enslaved living in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations. The Choctaw and Chickasaw sided with the Confederacy during the conflict. And it just talks about how even though they passed laws, the Indians would not let them go. All right, talking about the Native Americans here, who Yahweh's going to show us are actually Hamites. South American Israel. Claims of descent from the lost tribes have been proposed in relation to many groups. All right, let's go to South American Israel, because they have British Israel and got them all. Let me see. Actually,
Praise
Mighty Yah for revelation knowledge, and most blacks want to be Indians.
They sure do. Okay, you know what? We're going to skip this because we hit on them later. All right. Mexican Israel. The secret relation between blacks and Mexicans. This is by Diogenes Mohammed. He's a guest columnist, and it was last updated May 28, 2014. He says, colonial Mexico had the highest numbers of African slaves. Of the over 1 million casualties during the Mexican War of Independence, most of them, were Afro-Mexicans. Mexico's commitment to harbor black fugitive slaves triggered the Mexican-American War.
Okay.
She lost nearly 50% of her territory. After the war, Mexico, undeterred, including in her constitution, and continued her commitment to harbor fugitive slaves. Not long ago, Mexican-American TV host and comedian George Lopez was handed his DNA ancestry results by Mariah Carey after the question was posed as to whether he would fall under the proverbial one-drop African racial classification. Lopez's results showed a 4% African blood. Texican actress Eva Longorio's 3% African ancestry surfaced in DNA taken by PBS series Faces of America by Henry Louis Gates Jr. and National Geographic's Genographic Mexican-American Reference Population attributes a 4% African contribution to the La Raza pool. The mestizo, which is the proverbial La Raza Mexicano, customarily extols his Indian roots and laments or praises his Spanish roots, but rarely is the African part acknowledged.
Right.
All right. Puerto Rican Israel. African descendants in Puerto Rico, they call them Afro-Puerto Ricans. Says the conquistadors, the Spaniards, enslaved the Tainos. Now we passed those things around, so we actually saw the people. They were dark-skinned people who were the native inhabitants of the island, and many of them died as a result of the cruel treatment that they had received. According, the fact that the Spaniard was unable to annihilate the African slave as he did the Indian slave, the fact that the African had a sense of identity, the fact that the African demonstrated resistance against the Spanish by revolting at times, the fact that they sought freedom in the interior and mountainsides are all a reflection of the strong and independent civilizations from which they came. All right, so let's get to some other articles so we can actually see. All right, so that's just a little bit of the rainbow mixed multitude Israel. So let's look at number 3, the rainbow European Israel. All right, this is the rainbow European Israel. This is Japhethite, Anglo-Saxon, British Israel. The editor-in-chief wrote in their magazine, Tomorrow's World, March to April 2018 edition, to the Northeast Regional Living Church of God in Manhattan, New York. It says, Americans and British descended peoples, along with the French, Dutch, Belgians, Swiss, and Scandinavians, have lost their true identity. You will be amazed that so few understand something that's so provable. In his book, Mystery of the Ages by Herbert W. Armstrong, he talks about Genesis, the 48th chapter, verses 14 to 16. And then he says, let who grow? You can read this on your own time in Genesis 48, because he's trying to say Manasseh has something to do with, Ephraim and Manasseh has something to do with, now he's saying Israel has turned into a Caucasians or Europeans. It says, let who grow into the promised multitude? Let whose descendants become that numerous seed which shall number into billions? Not Judah, the father of the Jews, noted, but Ephraim and Manasseh. Why have the eyes of church leaders been blinded to this plain fact of Scripture? says, notice Israel did not confer this blessing on just one, but both. He's talking about Genesis, the 48th chapter, when Israel put his hands on Ephraim and Manasseh. He's trying to make it into something that it's not.
Right.
He goes on in Mystery of the Ages, the United States is Manasseh. But how can the USA be Manasseh when a large part of the population have come from many nations besides England? The answer is this. A large part of Manasseh remained with Ephraim until the separation of New England. Ephraim and much of Manasseh finally immigrated to England together. But many of Manasseh who had filtered into and through other nations did not leave them until they came as immigrants to the United States after the New England colony had become the separate nation. This does not mean that all foreigners who have immigrated to America are of the stock of Manasseh, but undoubtedly many are. Israel, however, always did absorb Gentiles who became Israelites through living in Israel's land and intermarrying. All right, so his thing is, he says, okay, there's, suffice to say here that there is ample evidence that the other 8 tribes have descended into such northwestern European nations as Holland, Belgium, Denmark, northern France, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Sweden, Norway. The people of Iceland are also of Viking stock. The political boundaries of Europe as they exist today do not necessarily show lines of division between descendants of these original tribes of Israel. So he's saying, all right, we got a European Israel, right?
Yep.
Now I have this article here, and then we're going to go back to the scripture. www.globalresearch.ca. Before Columbus, how Africans brought civilization to America, by Garakai Chinu. And he updated this October 12, 2014. It has now become common knowledge amongst academics that Christopher Columbus clearly did not discover America.
That's right.
Not least because it is impossible to discover a people and a continent that was already there and thriving with culture.
Right.
One can only wonder how Columbus could have discovered America when people were watching him from American shores when he was pulling up. Contrary to popular belief, African American history did not start with slavery in the New World.
Right.
An overwhelming body of new evidence is emerging which proves that Africans had frequently sailed across the Atlantic to the Americas thousands of years before Columbus and indeed before Christ. The great ancient civilizations of Egypt and West Africa traveled to the Americas. The strongest evidence of African presence in America before Columbus comes from the pen of Columbus himself. It says, Columbus noted in his journal that Native Americans had confirmed that a, quote, black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats, trading in gold-tipped spears, unquote. One of the first documented instances of Africans sailing and settling in the Americas were black Egyptians, led by King Ramses III during the 19th dynasty in 1292 BC. In fact, in 445 BC, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs' great seafaring and navigational skills.
Okay.
Further concrete evidence noted by Dr. Imhotep and largely ignored by Eurocentric archaeologists includes, quote, Egyptian artifacts found across North America, from the Algonquin writings on the East Coast to the artifacts and Egyptian place names in the Grand Canyon, unquote.
Hallelujah.
In 1311, another major wave of African exploration to the New World was led by King Abu Bakr II. the ruler of the 14th century Mali Empire. You're talking about Hamites now.
Right.
Which was larger than the Holy Roman Empire. The king sent out 200 ships of men and 200 ships of trade material, crops, animals, cloth, and crucial African knowledge of astronomy, religion, and the arts.
Yes.
It says, historians are beginning to recognize that Africans were skilled navigators long before Europeans.
That's right.
Contrary to popular belief.
Yeah.
It says, when most people think about ancient Mexico, the first civilizations that come to mind are the Incas, Aztecs, and the Maya.
Right.
Saw some of those pictures.
Right.
However, during the early 1940s, archaeologists uncovered a civilization known as the Olmecs of 1200 BC, which predated any other advanced civilization in the Americas. The Olmec civilization, which was of African origin and dominated by Africans, was the first significant civilization in Mesoamerica and the mother culture of Mexico. Olmecs are perhaps best known for the carved colossal heads found in central Mexico that exhibit an unmistakably African Negroid appearance.
Right.
You know what is on Easter Island? They pulled up and they see those things with the big noses.
Yeah.
You see the pyramids in South America. You see them in Mexico. They're Hamites. They're just building the pyramids and doing the same thing that they were doing over in the land of Ham. It says, a clear indicator of pre-Columbus African transatlantic travel is the recent archaeological findings of narcotics native to America in ancient Egyptian mummies, which have astounded historians. German toxicologists reported findings of cocaine and nicotine in ancient Egyptian mummies. These substances are known to only be derived from American plants. South American cocaine from coca and nicotine. Such compounds could only have been introduced to ancient Egyptian culture through trade with the Americans.
Praise
Came over here.
for revelation
The
knowledge.
Mayans, Aztecs, and Incas all worship black gods, and the surviving portraits of the black deities are revealing. For instance, ancient portraits of the Quetzalcoatl, a Messiah serpent god, and Ahua, the god of war, are unquestionably Negro, with dark skin and woolly hair. All right, and it talks about how the Olmecs made a pyramid, and then you saw the Aztecs, because they all built pyramids.
Right.
It says, clearly Africans helped civilize America well before Europeans, quote unquote, discovered America. And well before Europeans claimed to have civilized Africa. The growing body of evidence is now becoming simply too loud to ignore.
Yes.
And this Mr. Kiku is a scholar at Harvard University. And then he gives his email for you to contact him. garaku.chinu@gmail.com.
Okay, say, let me show y'all some truths.
Sure did. All right, so let's go to Genesis, the 9th chapter. Because we have some other articles that talk about how
mighty Yah.
people got here before Columbus.
Right.
Got over to the Americas before Columbus, long before.
Right.
9. So before Jacob's people ruled the world, Yahweh recorded in scriptures that the two black sons of Noah, Shem and Ham, ruled the world.
Right.
And then he recorded that there was going to come a time when Jacob was going to take over. Genesis 9, 3 verse 27, please.
Hallelujah.
Genesis chapter 9 and verse 27. Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant.
All right, so this is talking about when the Japhethites were going to be their turn to rule, which it is now.
So
all right, so the devil had Japheth's people cover up, discredit, and disavow everything that Ham and Shem did.
Right.
They knocked the noses off the pharaohs, off the sphinxes. They destroyed Ham's people's monuments. to stop people from seeing that Ham got there first.
Right.
He ruled first. Go to Zephaniah, the first chapter. Zephaniah. So their version, the Japheth's people version of history, records Ham and Shem as never having done anything of importance.
So they
Zephaniah, the first chapter.
Hallelujah.
They took the colonies of the world from Ham because Ham had already colonized the world.
Right.
Zephaniah, the first chapter.
Hallelujah.
You want to read one verse, verse 11.
Praise
Zephaniah 1 and verse 11.
Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 11. How, ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchants people are cut down. All they that bear silver are cut off.
So this is talking about what we just read in Genesis, where Canaan was going to be Japheth's servant. All right? And he was going to dwell in the tents of Shem. It says, how ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people. This is talking about Ham's people. They were worldwide businessmen. You know, now they talk about the World Wide Web, WW. Ham was worldwide centuries ago. He invented going worldwide. It says, but they're cut down. All they that bear silver are cut off. So they were trading all kinds of things and taking all kinds of things back and forth in their ships. They tried to take spiritual supremacy from Shem, but Yahweh had individuals of the 12 natural tribes already converted into his 12 spiritual tribe nation. So they were already spreading his word. They couldn't touch them. They could only confiscate our people's culture and the paraphernalia, which they took out of the temple in Jerusalem, and they hid it in their homes and in museums and in the Vatican. All right? So Japheth's people, let's go to Isaiah 23. Japheth's people rely on Ham and Shem's people's abilities. Max Factor, Maybelline, and CoverGirl did not invent makeup.
No, they did not.
I got this article right here. Ancient Egyptian men used eye makeup for many reasons. This is from ancientpages.com. It says, frescoes discovered in ancient Egyptian temples illustrating daily life reveal men often wore makeup. It's almost impossible to find a portrait of an ancient Egyptian whose eyes are not decorated. So again, Max Factor, this is nothing new. That's just Japheth copying off of what Ham did. Ancient Egyptian eye makeup was very elaborate and used as early as 4000 BC. Eye makeup equipment, palettes, grinders, applicators, and if you go in Walgreens or any store, you can get them. They got all in different colors. They're just doing the Egyptian thing. Ancient Egyptians used a variety of cosmetics such as eye makeup, rouge. All right, the Japhethites put that on their cheeks. And perfumed oils. They got all the perfume, that softened the skin and prevented burning in the sun and damage from the sandy winds. Galena powder possesses disinfectant and fly deterrent properties.
Praise the mighty Yah.
They got the powder puff that they use. The smoky coal liner served both practical and ritualistic purposes. So you see them, they got the black eyes. Now some of them, now they do that thing that the Egyptians do on the corner. All right. Their favorite eye makeup colors were black and green, and outlining the eyes with pigment was deliberately done to create an almond or feline shape, because they worship the cat. So that's what those cat eyes are about, what they do. All right. It says, an unadorned and thus unprotected eye was believed vulnerable to the evil eye. Outlining the eyes thus became a personal protective amulet drawn right upon the skin. An amulet that once applied could not be lost or misplaced. Makeup was believed to have magical healing powers. All right? Now, Schick and Gillette did not invent razors. Michael Jordan did not invent the bald head hairstyle. Shaving. www.egyptsearch.com. Hosted by Mike 111. on the 3rd of January 2008. Shaving predates history, yet we found that it was the men and women of early Egypt who really established shaving and hair removal as a regular part of daily grooming. A custom which continued today for people all over the world. Says the ancient Romans thought that a lack of major body hair was some kind of terrible deformity, but not in Egypt. Priests there believed that body hair was shameful and unclean. Wild animals and barbarian people had hair, not the sophisticated, super advanced Egyptian civilization. You see women on TV shaving their legs. You see them shaving under their arms. Following Egypt.
Hallelujah.
Says being hairless was accomplished by shaving, using depilatory creams. Well, they got some cream that you can put on to remove hair. Japheth copying Ham. Okay, you could rub the hair off with a pumice stone, men and women. The children of ancient Egypt all shaved their heads bald and wore elaborately made wigs. Okay. It was rare to find a man or woman out in public totally bald-headed, not just for sun protection, but for making a fashion statement as well. So what they did was shave their head, and then they put a wig on top of it. Says eventually everyone started shaving everywhere. Everything. Being hairless kept one cooler, as well as more bug and odor free. The less hair one had, the easier life was. And then the Egyptians also kept a barber on their household staff. Sound familiar? How many got on this street?
I know, right?
All right. Okay, Isaiah 23. All right, so Yahweh recorded that Canaan would be Japheth's servant. He recorded that Japheth's people would take over the tents of Shem. All right, they took Shem's culture. They hid the black Madonna and child over there in Europe. They started wearing tzitzits with no blue. They made a 9-branch menorah. All right, Isaiah 23, let's start at verse 1.
Hallelujah.
Isaiah 23 and verse 1. The burden of Tyre, how, ye ships of Tarshish, for it is laid to waste, so that there is no house, no entering in from the land of Chittim. It is revealed to them.
Verse 2.
Verse 2. Be still, ye inhabitants of the isles, thou whom the merchants of Zidon that passed over the sea have replenished.
Now you see, talking about the merchants of Zidon. It's talking about the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were the one that invented the boats and was sailing all over the place. But it says the burden of Tyre, how, ye ships of Tarshish, just talking about Ham's people, was laid waste. So there is no house, no entering in from the land of Chittim. It is revealed to them. Be still, ye inhabitants of the isle. Now it's talking about Japheth's people, the inhabitants of the isle. Thou whom the merchants of Zidon, Ham's people that pass over the sea, have replenished. So they're not telling you how Ham was all up in Egypt. I have some articles where they took over Britain, they took over Ireland. And so Stonehenge, those big stones that are up there, they're trying to figure out, just like the pyramids, who built these? How did they? Ham got up there and built them and took over Britain. We're taking the Europeans' territory from them, and that's why Japheth's people are so upset, and they're just making sure nobody ever finds out. They won't tell you that Ham's people had all of Europe too. Even had Hannibal up there in Rome and Italy with elephants taking them, and they had the Moors in Spain that took over. All right, these are all Ham's people. Okay, so it says they pass over the sea. Verse 3.
Verse 3. And by great waters the seed of Sihor, the harvest of the river, is her revenue, and she is a mark of the nation.
It is the worldwide global travel, global businessmen of the Hamites. It says by great waters, the seed of Sihor, the harvest of the river is her revenue. I mean, they had the business going for years.
Yes, they did.
She is a mark of nations. All right. So the scripture reveals that Japheth's people would make Canaan's people their servants. The English word Canaan is the Hebrew word Kenan, that's Kenaan, found at Blue Letter Bible number 3667. Justinus Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon defines it as a son of Ham, ancestor of the Canaanites, and the nation of Phoenicia.
Okay.
These are the sailors, the Phoenicians.
Right.
And I would hear about the Phoenicians for years, but nothing was said about them. These were black folks. These were Hamites, the Phoenician sailors, the best sailors that have ever been in the world. It says the Peony, a colony of the Phoenicians, which retained this ancient name. It's the language of Canaan. Hebrew, which the Hebrews and Canaanites used. It means any merchant or her merchants. In other words, businessmen that sail around and do business on the sea.
Right.
The devil had Japheth record nothing about Ham's ability to dominate the seas.
Okay.
Japheth took Ham's fleet of ships, learned to build ships, traveled and took Ham's colonies. All right, let's go to Proverbs, the 31st chapter. So Yahshua is the one, as a creator, he is Yahweh Elohim.
Right.
He's the one that taught men how to build seaworthy ships. You can write down Genesis, the 6th chapter, verses 14 to 16. That's where he instructed man how to start building ships.
Okay.
And they built the ark.
Right.
So Ham's people put ships and shipbuilding into everyday use.
Yep.
They were the ones that perfected it and became global businessmen.
Yep.
Proverbs 31 and verse 14.
Hallelujah.
Proverbs 31 and verse 14. She is like the merchant's ship. She bringeth her food from afar.
All right, so now this is talking about a Hebrew woman, but she was working with the Hamite businessmen.
Right.
Selling things to them, and they were bringing things to her. She's like the merchant ships. Talking about Ham's people. She brings her food from afar, so she was trading with these merchants. All right, skip down to verse 24.
Verse 24. She maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant.
And there it is again, where our people were interacting with the Hamites. The English word merchants is the Hebrew word sathar. That's C-A-C-H-A-R, found at Blue Letter Bible number 5505. Justinius Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon defines it as to go around, to travel about a country for the sake of traffic and to trade. This is what Ham people were about.
Sing grace.